the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. That's why I created the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Every show is 30 minutes, and the guests are my Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals. They're so wonderful. Financial advisors, divorce attorneys, mediators, divorce coaches, therapists, and more. We talk about every subject that you can even think of having to do with divorce. The podcast is meant to empower you and inspire you and make you feel really, really confident so that you can have a good divorce outcome and a great post-divorce life. You can find the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found, and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling. Before we get started, I want to tell you about two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals. They're both divorce attorneys in different states. The first one is Erica Sparrow, and Erica is a divorce attorney, a mediator, and the founder of Sparrow Law. She's based in Indiana, and she calls herself a peacemaker. She's been practicing divorce law since 2013 and says peacemaking is the way to resolve divorce cases with wisdom and care. She says families don't need sharks, they need solutions. I love Erica. She's so passionate and dedicated to alternative dispute resolution. I felt it the first time we talked, and I've seen it in her practice. If you want to learn more, you can find her at sparrowlawpc.com. The other divorce attorney I want to tell you about is Catherine Miller, who is the founder of Miller Law Group in New York. And I've known Catherine since 2020 when I was a guest on her podcast, Divorce Dialogues. Now, I don't know many other divorce attorneys who have their own podcast, and it's just so true. It made me realize how passionate Catherine is to offer her time and expertise to listeners around the country. Catherine is also a big believer in resolving complex divorces with expertise, compassion, and alternative dispute resolution, meaning mediation. If you want to learn more about Catherine, you can find her at miller-law.com. And you can find both Catherine and Erica in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Is it possible to be friends with your ex, especially an ex who hurt you? Which, if you're divorced and you're listening to this, of course he hurt you. That's why you got divorced. You would probably still be married if he didn't. And I want to talk about this. I think it's important because having a friendship with an ex is a great thing if you understand what you want out of the friendship, if there's respect, if it feels comfortable, and of course, if it's helping your kids. So that's what we're going to talk about today. My guest is Lisser, who is an attorney turned certified divorce coach, a spiritual coach, and the founder of her practice, LZL Coaching. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jackie.
So it's so great to have you on the show. And I'm very transparent in the podcast. So I want to tell my listeners, like Lisa and I were talking for a half an hour before we even started recording this because she's so easy to talk to. She makes so much sense, gives the best advice, is just really positive. So this is going to be a good conversation.
Thank you, Jackie. I'm sure it is. It always is.
All right. I want to tell my listeners. So I think you're okay with me saying this, Lisa. You did not have the best divorce, and you and your ex it was rocky for like a long time, but now you're friends.
Now we're friendly. Let's put it that way. Okay? Because, as I say in my article, you know what? It depends on what your definition of friend is. Like, I don't call him to confide in him, but I can share a joke with him about something that happened 30 years ago.
It feels good to laugh and reminisce.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like I just shared a picture with him of a place in the city in Manhattan that used to be an impound lodge and now is City Winery. And we were there together 35 years ago when one of our friends' cars got impounded. And so, like, that was like a fun memory. And I could send him a text of that picture and it's all good.
You know what's so funny? Like a month ago, I was in the city. I live in Chicago for my listeners. And I was in the city and I walked by this restaurant that my ex and I, it was like our favorite restaurant when we were first dating. And I actually sent him a text and said, "Hey, Bandera's not there anymore. Now it's called blah, blah, blah." And we're not like the best of friends either. But like he responded right away, like, "Oh, what a bummer. That was such a great place." So I know that he appreciated it. And I think if you can get to the point of where Lisa and I can are saying that we texted our ex or told our ex about like something from when we were together, that's a good place to be in.
Yeah, it really is. It really is because you don't have to be best friends, but you do have a shared past. And if you can acknowledge the shared past with humor or a smile or a text, then you can see for yourself that you've released some of that anger and pain, and that's a good place to be.
Okay, let's start the conversation off with if someone's listening to this and they're like, "Okay, how am I gonna be friends with my ex because he really screwed me over, he hurt me." We, I think, are in agreement that you have to say to yourself, what kind of friendship? What do I really want? What is friendship when I say, can I be friends with my ex? What does that mean? And what are some different possibilities?
Right. Well, so it's really a complicated question. You know, there are reasons to be civil with your ex, right? To not always blow up, to not have constant conflict, to not yell or cry or act out every time you have an interaction. There are very fine reasons for that, and their names are your children, right? That's the ultimate goal. But do you want to be friends so you can still confide everything? Do you want to be friends so that you could do things together? Do you want to pretend like you still go out every Saturday night together? So, those are not necessarily the best reasons to try and stay connected. Um, the kids
Okay.
are. Okay.
I have another reason. Maybe you want to be friends with your ex because it makes your relationship having to do with the kids, co-parenting, him giving you child support. Maybe he's paying for part of your house or doing something for you, and you want to stay friends for the reason of finances so that he'll continue to give you what you want. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but are you being friends or are you appeasing him just to make sure that he'll pay you on time? Now, both of the things may be necessary, right? I'm not going to say like you don't want to start a fight because you want him to pay on time. Like that makes perfect sense. That's logical, that's practical. That doesn't mean you're friends, right? It means something different. It means that you're in a business relationship. And in order to foster the positive dynamics of a business relationship, you behave a certain way. Like you may have work friends and home friends, and like they have different definitions and different roles in your lives. So maybe that's what you're trying to develop with your ex, like to have a business relationship. He's your friend because you have interdependence, even though you're divorced.
Okay, I love this because we're not sugarcoating anything here, and it's a really a complicated question. You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And today I'm here with divorce coach Lisa Lisser, an attorney turned certified divorce coach, spiritual coach, and she's the founder of LZL Coaching, which is lzlcoaching.com if you want to find her online. Lisa and I are talking about, is it possible to be friends with an ex who hurt you? We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about that pain and that hurt that you might feel and how you can get to a place of friendship. So we'll be right back. I want to tell you about two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who are both attorneys in different states. First is Renee Reed, who is a partner at Remley Law in Neenah, Wisconsin. And there's a reason why professionals, executives, and business owners hire Renee Reed as a divorce attorney. It's her experience and skill in handling complex, high-asset divorce. She's been doing it for 20 years, and she utilizes both litigation if needed and mediation in her practice. She's known for professionalism and service, and I am honored to have her as a Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professional. If you want to learn more about Renee, you can find her on the Remley Law website, remleylaw.com. The other professional I want to tell you about is Jamie Weber, who is a divorce attorney at Tschetter and Adams in South Dakota. Jamie grew up in South Dakota. She moved away for college and law school and then returned home to practice law, specifically divorce law, which she's been doing since 2009. She's a litigator, but always looks to mediation as a possibility for her clients if that can work. So proud, so excited to have Jamie as a Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professional. If you want to learn more, you can find her at the Tschetter Adams website, which is TSCHETTER Adams.com. And you can also find both Jamie and Renee in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Is it possible to be friends with an ex who hurt you? That's what we're talking about today. My guest is Lisser, divorce coach, spiritual coach, pre-mediation coach, life transition coach, and a BEH2O collaborative co-parent coach. Before I move on, tell my listeners what that is, because that's a big deal.
Oh, it's a big deal. So BEH2O is a method for high conflict co-parents to reframe how they co-parent, to reduce conflict and safeguard their children's childhoods. So it's a really amazing process, and you learn to speak from your why, your purpose, your goals, and that becomes the foundation of everything.
So do you teach that in your coaching, or is it that like a separate program?
So I'd say both and. So when I learned these techniques, they became part of my vocabulary, and they are infused in every conversation I have with my clients because I know what can work for them in a different way. At the same time, I offer workshops with individuals and with both co-parents to help them walk through the process of BEH2O with clarity and confidence because they know that it's about the kids and their conflict is the thing that's going to measure how their kids thrive after divorce.
Okay, now I actually think that BEH2O, the process, and going to Lisa and having coaching will actually lead to helping you become friends with your ex.
I think that you're 100% right. And in terms of friends or colleagues, again, some people do get out of the process and recognize that once they learn how to stand in the shoes of their co-parent, not because their co-parent deserves it, but because their kids deserve it, they start to develop a new perspective. They start to think outside of the box. So inside the box is, he did this, she did that, she's doing this just to hurt me. I hate being trapped here. I'm a victim. That's in the box thinking. Out of the box thinking is, I wonder why he's doing this. What is motivating him? What's going on? You start to learn how to have strategic empathy. Again, not because they deserve it, but because your kids deserve it. And if you can start to try to understand where they're coming from and what your goals are for the kids, you start to learn how to work together. And that can form the foundation of a kind of friendship.
I love that. Okay, let's get into when people get divorced, of course, your ex hurt you. The person might have been hurting you for a decade. You have resentment. You have a lot of anger towards the person. You have so much pain to deal with. You know, remember that time, even maybe 20 years ago, when he was so mean to me during this time. Or it's just like this heart, like your heart hurts sometimes at how much the person hurt you. So, how do you get to a place where, let's say, you want to be friends with your ex for whatever reason, but you just can't let go of that? You can't forgive, I guess.
Right. Well, so being friends with your ex or friendly or civil is not about forgetting. Like you can forgive, but forgiveness is for you. Is to help you release some of that hurt and anger and pain. And it's not because what they did wasn't wrong or bad or hurtful. It's because you don't have to let them have space in your brain anymore. Right? You can take them out of your brain for that piece. And it may sound like antithetical, but my identity is I was the victim of this person for 15 years. And then he victimized me in the divorce, and then this, and then that. And if that's the story you want to tell about your life, then maybe that's where you end. But you don't have to. What we all teach, especially in coaching, is that you get to choose who you're going to be today and for the rest of your life. And if you don't like being a victim, then you get to choose not to be. So
So,
what
how
that
do you rephrase what you just said?
okay, so if you have felt that your identity is tied up with being a victim, it's very hard to let go of that. But what I do when I work with people is I help them remember who they are by doing a values clarification. Like what's important to you? What are your strengths? When have you been able to use those strengths to really get hard things done? And I start to remind them that they can can love themselves independent of whatever happened to them. Because sometimes we're stuck with this definition of ourselves that is framed by outside experiences. And that can get in the way with being so-called friends with your ex because all you can think about is that they did that thing which caused your circumstances. But if we can say, okay, I don't want to live in the past, I want to move forward. And what's in my best interest? What's in my kids' best interest? And what's in our family unit? Because even though we're not married, we're still a family. What's in the best interest of this family unit? Then maybe you can step out of the victim and into the I get to choose. I don't want to continue the fight that we've had for the last 15 years. And what does that mean? Maybe that means learning a new communication pattern. Maybe that's Biff, right? We talk about that a lot. So when you communicate with your ex, you want to be brief, informative, factual, and firm. And I use the word factual, although Bill Eddy, who created it, says friendly, because we don't always feel like being friends with our ex, especially in the beginning. Once we start learning how to frame our conversations in a way that we're not re-engaging with conflict, then we're able to move forward. And then we're able to release some of the pain and resentment so that we can be our best selves for our kids. And that makes us better in terms of how we relate to our ex. Does
Okay,
that
now
make
I
sense?
think it makes sense. And I think the key here is that if you do what Lisa's saying and you forgive, you might be thinking, well, why would I forgive? I'm never going to forgive him, but I can still be friends with him. But really, what you're saying is, I'm never going to forget.
Right.
You can say, okay, I don't even like the word forgiveness because it sounds like you're saying it's okay that you did that. And it isn't okay. But
No.
you know what you're doing by forgiving? You're just putting it in the past. You're saying, I'm going to let this go because what is the point of even thinking about it anymore? And I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that victim. And I just want to live in the present. And I can do that.
What you're saying is that if I can release the pain, I'm not forgetting it, but I'm forgiving myself for subjecting myself to that pain.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You forgive yourself and then you have self-love and everything changes because your whole karma, your whole aura about you is like at peace. I've accepted this. I'm putting it in the past. I like myself because I'm putting it in the past. I'm being kind to the father of my children. And you know what? Maybe it's benefiting me too because I'm remembering all the good stuff. Because what is the point of remembering all the bad?
So yes, and this is why we call it strategic empathy. So if we're going to step into their shoes, we're going to have strategic empathy. We talk a lot about narcissism, and one of the things about narcissists is their behavior comes out of their own insecurities, which is underlying all of those negative behavior patterns. So if we can say to ourselves when we're being gaslit or whatever is that trigger for us, that this is just because he's insecure and I don't like the way it feels on me, but I'm going to be strategically empathetic right now and say, I hear what you're saying. We both have the same goals, and our goals are to make sure that our kid has parent audience at that recital. Like there's a way to say it. But again, you don't have to be friends. But if you start to develop the strategic empathy, there is a good chance you will become friendly and you'll be able to be in the same spaces together.
Now, there's one exception.
Yes.
You can say it.
Well, so when there's domestic violence, that is an exception. And you don't ever want to put yourself in a dangerous situation. You should never feel compelled to do that and to be friends with someone who has physically and emotionally hurt you. And, emotional abuse is harder because it's not as clear cut, right? And I have plenty of clients who feel like they are having post-traumatic stress, and that's really it's hard to try and relate to that person, but that person remains the father of your children or the mother of your children. And so they're going to be in your life. So you can't go gray rock. You have to find a way to communicate that is safe for you. And that's where communication patterns like BIF are really useful in helping you, because not only does it cut off conversation by not adding the extra clause, which is like, because you did this, or because you're always, or because. Don't say because. Give the facts of what you need to communicate and then move on. Because if you close the door to conversation, then you're eliminating the opportunity to re-hook and re-engage in the conflict. And that's what we hope for. So when we talk about being friends with your ex, I'm not saying like the day after your divorce is final, you should be friends. But I am saying that 4 years later, 3 years later, 7 years later, you're going to be in a totally different situation. It's not always going to be like it is right now. And you will have the opportunity to be civil to each other because you're going to have family events together if you have children. And so if your goal is, I want to be able to be civil at our children's wedding, and they're 12 now, you got a runway for that. And it doesn't have to happen immediately.
And you're going to have such a better time and a better life. And you're doing this for yourself. You're
Yes.
not doing it because your ex, to benefit your ex. You're doing it for your kids, but you're also doing it for yourself. The other exception I was going to say is addiction.
Oh,
If
right.
somebody has an addiction, now maybe, I don't know how they would have custody of your kids if they have an addiction. Maybe you're using SoberLink, but you know that they still have an addiction, but they're just not drinking around your kids and you feel okay with it. It's very hard to have a relationship and be buddy with
Well,
someone who is addicted.
addiction is a whole different animal. And so when you're co-parenting and your co-parent has a drug or alcohol addiction. Some people have gambling addiction. Some people have sex addictions. There could be anything. You just may not be safe if you're in the same space. And at the same time, your kids may not be safe. And so that's a situation where we're not talking about standard protocol. We're not talking about 50-50 custody, because until there is evidence that your spouse is in recovery for a period of time, your responsibility is your kids, and they can't be safe if you just don't know. And so, and if along with the addiction came physical abuse, then there are so many layers. At the same time, people who struggle with addiction can be in recovery. And we don't want to punish the parent who's been sober for a period of time from having a relationship with their children. So that's where you need to find the balance. And each family situation is different, because there is so much pain that's associated with it, so much betrayal that's associated with it, that, there are extenuating circumstances.
So, great example. Let's say your spouse was a terrible alcoholic. You have PTSD from all of the pain he caused you. You got divorced. He finally got help. Now he's working on himself. And you're like, well, Jackie and Lisa, do you expect me to be friends with him and just say I'm not going to forget it? No, we expect you to try to support him for the benefit of your kids.
Right.
Not because you're going to say to yourself, like, oh, it's okay. We can be good friends now. But if you are kind and you are supportive that he is now in treatment, then you're only benefiting your kids. And, that's a tough situation. I'm not going to say, like, oh, forgive and forget. It's
No,
harder.
no, but we never say forgive and forget. But what we do say is, um, we say forgive for everybody involved, and we say put up appropriate boundaries, and respect yourself as you uphold the boundaries, because that is also helping create a framework for the spouse to live up to their recovery, because we want them to have a relationship with their kids, and it can only happen in certain circumstances. So, I have done spiritual counseling in addiction situations, so I'm familiar with the experience, and I don't want to judge anyone who is struggling with an addiction. But there are tools to recovery, but they have to be willing to take those steps. And if it means a 12-step meeting every day, it means a 12-step meeting every day.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Last question. Do you ever recommend to people that they should sit down and say to your ex, can we talk? I would really like to be friends. Here's what I mean by that. Here's what I envision. Do you think you could come on board and we could do this?
So I have two perspectives on that. So, sure, there may be a situation where you could do that. But what if instead of talking about it, you just did it? Right? Like sometimes we want to be performative and say, this is what I would like. Or we can say, I'm having the family for Passover. Would you like to come? And you can bring your mom. And whether that feels really comfortable or it feels awkward and uncomfortable, if it's for the benefit of your kids, maybe you do it. And that action is for you. It's not necessarily for them. But that will demonstrate that you are open to maintaining some relationship that's not just focused on the fight or the money or the conflict. It's about, you got a family together. And so sometimes you're going to be together.
I love that advice. Just do it. And two things. If your ex isn't reciprocating, that's okay. And second, because you'll be so happy with yourself, like Lisa said, for doing it. And the second thing is, I bet you the other person will start acting like you're acting. They'll just kind of pick up on your cue and kind of eventually start treating you the way you're treating him, hopefully.
Hopefully, and that's also the science of it, right? We have something called mirror neurons. And this is something I learned through my BEH2O training. When you are getting highly engaged and the energy goes up, you're going to yell at each other. You're both going to fight. But if you can bring it down, then you're going to be modeling lower energy. If you're going to be hospitable, you're going to be modeling hospitality. And that's a whole different way of engaging with each other. So if you can show that you can be together for the sake of the children, then there's a more there's a more likely chance that they will do the same thing because of science, because we have mirror neurons.
I love that. I never knew that. Lisa, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. I really enjoyed the conversation.
This was great. And this is, we talk so deeply. We speak that none of these things were part of what we originally said was going to be the main thrust, but it's all about how do we engage with our co-parent? How do we stay friendly? And what we want out of the relationship and why. And the why is because we want our kids to have two parents who can be in the same room at the same time.
And we want a happy life. And a happy life is happier when you don't have these toxic relationships.
100%. Absolutely.
Thanks again, Lisa. If you want to learn more or want to hire Lisa or talk to her and consult with her, you can find her at lzlcoaching.com. And you can also find her in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling, which is divorcedgirlsmiling.com. You can also go to Divorced Girl Smiling to read articles, listen to more podcasts, or sign up for my free consult, which is a 30-minute consult where I listen to your story and I will recommend professionals based on what you need to help you get the best possible divorce outcome. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.